Elden Ring. What a game this has been. What a journey. I enjoyed it. I'm not gonna sit here and make a case for why it's bad, but I definitely see why some FromSoft diehards and veterans say it's garbage. I see what the FromSoft OGs are meaning when they say it's unbalanced. I see what like the Dark Souls 1 Puritans are saying when they say that it is broken in ways that are irreconcilable. Like, the only way to fix some of the issues in this game is to just get it right in the next one. Story? Story's okay. I would say it's about on par with every other FromSoft game I've ever played to completion. Of course, I say that, and then Bloodborne exists, so I don't know if that's true. Gameplay-wise, at the beginning, it is very strong. You get your very intriguing, terrifying environments. You get your very compelling, deep enemies. Like Margit/Morgott, I would say despite the game in which he is, and despite the dodgy balancing of his boss fights, I would say he's one of the most fun characters in all of Elden Ring. If not, I wouldn't be surprised if, like, you ask people, like, to rank the characters in FromSoft games. I wouldn't be surprised if they put him in, like, their top 10. Because he's a pretty cool guy. His whole shtick is, this process is stupid, this process sucks, and I hate you for trying to perpetuate it, so I'm going to kill you now. And I really like him for that. I love his energy. He knows what you're trying to do, and he's not a fan. People like him make the beginning of the game really, really strong. This is where I have to get into, like, the nuances and depth of multiple franchises. If a franchise goes long enough, or is made to wait long enough, or is, I guess, rewarded for not... In the case of FromSoft, they're not being rewarded for mediocrity so much as they're being rewarded for what they're known for. So, like, there's a lot of elements that exist out of spite. Like, for example, objectively, there are some terrible garbage bosses in this game. There are bosses that are unplayable. There are bosses that you either have to cheese, or you have to use, like, game-breaking mechanics that you... Like, if you personally don't want to use the game-breaking mechanics, you will suffer. And here's the thing. I get it, you should use summons, I get it, you should use spells, I get it. But here's the problem. You cannot have your cake and eat it too. You cannot have a game like Elden Ring, whose whole marketing strategy is variety, and then say, all variety is viable except the variety which you are currently trying to play. And like it or not, the game has multiple instances where it says that. And then there's the weird instances where Miyazaki says, like, yes, use the summon mechanic, use this, use that. And then he's like, at this one juncture in particular, however, I am going to punish you for it. And you're like, wait, what? What do you mean? I thought the whole purpose was me doing... okay. The first third of this game is like Dark Souls 3, Sekiro levels of awesome. But the moment you get to the midpoint, that's where they start to burn, like, some of the best moments. Like, burning the Erd Tree, fighting Morgott, like, those bits and pieces are really, really good. And then it's when you start to pursue the optional content, or the endgame content, it's where it starts to get really, really rough. And again, I want to just emphasize that all of my criticisms of this game are coming from a place of love. I've just had... I finished the game, and in the moment, full disclosure, because I didn't play this game at release. I played it years later, when it's had time to be updated, and balanced, and built from the ground up to be great. Like, they've had the opportunity to fix a lot of what I consider problems, and instead they've either chosen to double down or make them Worse, it gets to the point where some of the bosses they come across as just hard for hard's sake, especially near the end game, or if you're like me and you played this game recently, the DLC. Oh my god, I have never played a more pathetically balanced, poorly optimized, like unfun experience. I had no fun learning Promised Consort Radon. I had no fun with it. And that's coming from someone who beat it. I haven't even used his remembrance, because I literally just didn't care. It made me so unenthusiastic for the game that when I beat him, the very next night I had my stream where I just killed Radagon, and then I played like 20 minutes of New Game Plus, and then just immediately uninstalled Elden Ring. He literally Promised Consort Radon was such a smash your face against this brick wall until either your skull cracks or the wall breaks experience that I'm just like, it had no fun. It wasn't fun. And they're like, oh, well, I know the FromSoft defenders, the FromSoft meat writers are going to be in my comments going, oh, well, you just had to change up your approach. I did, like, 800 times. There's countless builds that I tried both on and off stream where it just didn't work. It stems back to my argument. Elden Ring's whole selling point was, we are the biggest game and we have the most variety. Come one, come all. This is the perfect place to become a FromSoft fan. Only for it to be like, lol, 90% builds not viable. When it won Game of the Year over God of War Ragnarok, I was overjoyed. And this was before I even played the game, for the simple fact that I don't think the newer God of War games, from a gameplay perspective, are anything like, universe-shattering. And for the first third of this game, you know what? I'll go even further. For the first 65% of this game, I agreed. I was like, yeah, this is total Game of the Year material. And then I get to the ending and I'm just like, oh, this is not fun anymore. It's not. In the beginning and middle portions, there are problems. But once you get to the, end of the DLC, once you get to the end of the actual game, once you get to the optional zones and the optional bosses, it doesn't feel like Miyazaki created this to be a fun challenge. It feels like he created it as a roast against video game journalists who bitched that they couldn't beat Sekiro. I'm gonna let that sink in for a second. I don't feel that Miyazaki created this to be a fun challenge. I feel like he made it this way out of spite for game journalists who couldn't beat Sekiro. Because for those of you who don't know, when Sekiro Shadows Die Twice came out, it was critically panned by a lot of video game journalists. Across the board, it had really good ratings, because it's got great graphics, it runs phenomenally, and it has, phenomenal combat and story. You can't call it a bad game. You objectively can't call it a bad game. However, multiple outlets just slandered it outright because it was too hard for the person they paid to play it and beat it for a review. So the person just called it trash. And it made the news because people were like, it's too hard, and it was this whole reigniting the argument about difficulty in video games, and I'm like, whatever. It's definitely an acquired taste, but that doesn't make it bad. Meanwhile, Elden Ring feels like it went in the opposite direction, where it tried to cater to multiple tastes, and in doing so, not only does it fail to maintain a significantly unique identity all its own, other than its aesthetic, it also just categorically fails in the balancing department. Your power creep doesn't feel near as satisfying in this game as it does in others. Crucible Knights are not fun to fight, whether you're level 9 or level 900. Meanwhile, if you look at other Dark Souls games like Dark Souls 1, Black Knights are amazing to fight when you're in-game level stats. It's really fun to just kick their shit in. when you are buffed beyond belief. Meanwhile, another thing in Elden Ring, I'm gonna just address the elephant in the room. I know I just got done complimenting one of them narratively, but the Elden Ring bosses, dude, some of them are pathetic and stupid. I don't know why nearly every boss tracks you like a robot. I remember some of the, like, ingenuity and appeal of past FromSoft games is how big dude will bring down his sword in a badass slash, and you get satisfaction from rolling past him, getting behind him, and hitting him with your own weapon. You almost can never do that in Elden Ring, because every boss will be laser focused and stuck on you like a robot, like a drone. A lot of people rightfully talk trash about how Margit Morgit has like his delayed slash, where he'll raise his sword above his head and then just sort of sit there for like 5 seconds. And they're like, oh, get the timing right. Yeah, that's part of it. But if I get the timing wrong by 1 second, he shouldn't auto-track me and hit me anyways. If I roll 1 second early, I should still get behind him. It's called simple frickin' physics. And it is doable, because FromSoft has done it in the past. There are bosses in other games where you can dodge an attack from them, and they will need to take the time to turn like a living being to compensate for the fact that you have moved out of the way of their attack. A lot of it feels like difficulty for difficulty's sake. Kingdom Hearts, the data fights, and secret bosses in Kingdom Hearts 2 and 3 are some of the hardest bosses in video game history. They are not, however, difficult for difficulty's sake. If you take the time, if you take the humility, and spend the diligence, your due diligence, you can take no damage and have no requirement for healing. You cannot guarantee that in Elden Ring. It is entirely RNG based, because there are multiple instances in Radagon's fight, in Malekith's fight, in Promised Consort Radahn's fight. There are multiple instances. You can dodge, you can parry, you can roll, you can do the technique mechanic that the boss implies you need to do. You're gonna hit a wall eventually where the boss just says, fuck you, I'm hitting you anyways. And you die. You either die or you lose 1,000,000,000% of your health, so you need to back up and heal. Or you will die the next time he does the same thing. It gets to the point where it takes, like, the fun out of the encounter. A game that I would say has arguably better balancing and an objective metric is Lies of P. That game spoils us, and they kind of need to ape it. Like, they need to rip off the rip-off, because it did a lot of things better. Better balance when it comes to its gameplay mechanics. It has better balancing when it comes to the boss fights. The bosses are actually learnable and consistent. Like, sure, some bosses are harder than others, but at the end of the day, if you take the time, if you dedicate it, you will not hit a brick wall of inconsistency. You will not find a particle effect that acts abnormally. You will not find an attack that hits 2 frames earlier because screw you for trying to learn the patterns. You won't find that stuff in Lies of P, which is why I'm one of many people who thinks Lies of P is better than Elden Ring. Elden Ring was a fun experience. I will miss it. I had fun with it. But Promised Consort Radahn, as well as a few other endgame hiccups, just honestly broke me. I have no desire to, and probably never will, return to this game. It went from a satisfying, enriching, investing experience to just like literally it felt like it was penalizing me for trying to learn the game. Like, Promised Consort Radahn was one of, if not the most mentally eroding, emotionally frustrating, and like It felt like it was actively disregarding me, the player, in real time. Like, it felt like Miyazaki made that. Again, a lot of I just bounced back. A lot of Elden Ring feels like it was made out of spite. The base game feels like it was made out of spite for the developers for the journalists who thought Sekiro was too hard. Like, he gave you a false sense of security at the beginning and made some of the bosses a little easy to do, let's face it. And then by the time you get to the end game, just so much is so insane and intense. And then the DLC feels like he made it out of spite for the fans who said Elden Ring was too easy. Like, it feels like this entire game was made out of spite. And I don't know what to say other than that. I'm sorry. This does not compare. The best games in FromSoft's catalog are still Sekiro and Bloodborne, and I will stand and die on that hill. Sekiro 2, Bloodborne 2, those are the games that I'm going to flip out for in the future. I'm really glad I got to experience the DLC firsthand, not have to be, like, carried through it by playthroughs and stuff. The only time I consulted a guide was looking for the rest of the fragments and ashes. But, like, I'm gonna be so real. Overall, I give it a 6. 6 out of 10. Unironically, will never play again. I gave myself literally a week and a half to ruminate on it, because I literally thought that this was just post-nut clarity for the boss, you know? I thought, like, after getting violated by Promised Consort Radon for X amount of hours, I would be, like, you know, automatically biased and inclined to just despise the game. So I waited, like, a good week and a half to gather my thoughts and ruminate, and nothing changed. Nothing changed. I feel nothing. Like, he single-handedly took my investment and desire to play this game and like it, and just unceremoniously tore it down. It's good, in a basic sense. I don't think anyone would waste their time playing this game. And I still think mechanics-wise, it's probably better than God of War Ragnarok. Because I've seen all the mechanics that game has to offer. I've seen what a max build looks like in that game. I'm not impressed with that. So, I still am glad that it won Game of the Year, but dear God, the state it's in compared to, it speaks to the power of a developer. Like, I'm gonna heap some praise at FromSoft. This is one of the weaker games in their catalog, objectively. And if you like it, if it's your favorite FromSoft game, I am not going to fault you for that, okay? One of my favorite movies of all time is Constantine with Keanu Reeves, okay? It's not a good movie, I just have fun with it. I'm not going to fault anyone for adoring this game. If you adore this game, power to you. But it's not. It speaks to the power of the FromSoft development team when one of their weaker games is still Game of the Year material, compared to everything else in the industry right now. Like, I know for a fact that I am going to hit, there's an arbitrary threshold of quality that they will just never miss. It is still high quality, it is still about what you'd expect from a FromSoft game. However, I'm gonna stick to my guns. Dark Souls 3, Bloodborne, Sekiro, they're still leagues better than this, and it's not close, I'm afraid. I really honestly hope that their next game is like a new one, like another new IP. I really hope it's not Elden Ring 2. Not that I'd be opposed to it. If they make an Elden Ring 2 and expand and improve on the issues I brought up today, I would not be against it. I would love it. Bloodborne 2, Sekiro 2, or a new IP. That would be what I prefer. Elden Ring was a fun Nordic-esque side escapade, but I feel like it's time to move on. You got to triple down on everything in your mission statement for the Shadow of the Erdtree DLC, and if the Shadow of the Erdtree DLC, other than some of the boss fights, if the Shadow of the Erdtree DLC is an indicator, like, from a world building, like a physical world environment exploration perspective, is an indication of what their next game is going to be, I welcome that. But dear God, leave that Scatatree fragment shit in the past, please. Please do not make every game have Sekiro-style level-up mechanics. Please don't do that. I like the 2 side jaunts we've done with it. We do not need any more in the future. I can't wait to see what FromSoft does next in the industry. I'm still a fan. I'm just Elden Ring burned me out on itself. I had fun most of the time. The lore was fun to read. Music is always a 10. Most of the points from every FromSoft game come from the music. That's my thoughts. Elden Ring, it's been fun. But, it is time to put these feeble ambitions to rest.